Lucky's fingers were the only thing between him and 40 feet of empty air. March 17th, 1935. Fourth floor office, Mott Street, Chinatown. 9:23 p.m. 3 men had him. 2 holding his arms, 1 pushing his chest, trying to force him through the open window. Lucky's feet were off the ground, his body halfway out the window. Cold March wind hitting his face. Below, Mott Street, concrete, cars, people who looked like ants. Lucky's right hand shot out, grabbed the window frame. Iron grip, every muscle in his forearm screaming. "Let go!" Frank Nitti shouted. "Chicago outfit, Al Capone's enforcer." The man pushing Lucky's chest. Lucky didn't let go. His left hand found the brick exterior, fingernails digging into mortar between stones. Holding on with everything he had. "Push harder," Nitti yelled at the 2 men holding Lucky's arms. They pushed. Lucky's fingers started slipping, millimeter by millimeter, his body tilting further out the window. This was supposed to be a simple meeting. Lucky and 3 Chicago representatives, discussing bootlegging territories. Standard business. Then the door had burst open. 5 more Chicago men, all armed, all moving fast. Lucky had fought, landed 3 good hits before they overwhelmed him. Numbers. They'd used numbers and surprised him. Now they were trying to throw him out a 4th floor window, and Lucky Luciano was running out of grip strength. To understand how Lucky ended up hanging from a window, you need to understand what happened 6 days earlier, March 11th, 1935. Chicago, Al Capone's headquarters. Frank Nitti sat across from Capone, the boss of Chicago, the man who'd built an empire on bootlegging and violence. "Luciano's getting too powerful," Capone said, lighting a cigar. "Controls New York, working on Atlantic City. Now he wants Chicago routes through the Midwest. So we negotiate," Nitti said. "We tried negotiating 3 times. Luciano says no to everything we propose, says Chicago needs to stay in Chicago. So what do you want me to do?" Capone looked at him. "I want you to make him disappear. Accident. Something that can't be traced back to us. Make it look like New York infighting." "How?" "Get him to a meeting, somewhere high up, then push him out a window. 4 stories, maybe 5. He dies. It looks like someone from his own crew did it. We get blamed for nothing. And if he survives the fall..." Capone smiled, not friendly. "Nobody survives a 4-story fall. Physics doesn't negotiate." Nitti had set the trap perfectly, contacted Lucky through intermediaries, said Chicago wanted to make peace, wanted to discuss new arrangements, wanted Lucky himself to attend. No proxies. Lucky had agreed. March 17th, Chinatown office, 4th floor, neutral territory. What Lucky didn't know, 8 Chicago men, a plan to throw him out a window, and Frank Nitti, who'd killed 17 people in his career, ready to add number 18. Lucky's left hand slipped, lost its grip on the brick. His body swung out further. Now only his right hand on the window frame keeping him from falling. 40 feet below, people were starting to notice. Pointing up, shouting. Lucky could hear them. Distant, like voices from another world. His right hand was shaking, fingers cramping, the window frame cutting into his palm. Frank Nitti leaned out the window, looked down at Lucky. "This is where it ends. Luciano, Chicago doesn't share." Then Nitti stomped on Lucky's fingers. Lucky felt bones crack, middle finger, maybe ring finger, white-hot pain shooting up his arm, but Lucky didn't let go. Instead, Lucky did something Nitti didn't expect. Lucky looked up, made eye contact, and smiled. "You made a mistake, Frank." "Yeah? What's that?" "You should have shot me." Then Lucky swung his left arm, the one that had been hanging free, swung it hard, grabbed the outside window ledge, 2nd-story ledge, below the window but within reach, if you were desperate enough. Now Lucky had 2 points of contact. Right hand on frame, left hand on ledge. He pulled, every muscle in his back and shoulders engaged, pulled himself sideways along the building exterior, away from the window, away from Nitti's reach. "Grab him," Nitti shouted. The 2 Chicago men leaned out, reached for Lucky, but Lucky was already moving, hand over hand along the ledge, like climbing horizontal monkey bars, 40 feet above ground. 10 feet from the window, 15, 20, his hands were screaming. The broken fingers on his right hand sent lightning bolts of pain with every movement, but Lucky kept moving, because stopping meant falling, and falling meant dying. And Lucky Luciano was not dying in Chinatown on a Tuesday night, because Frank Nitti thought windows were a good murder weapon. Lucky reached the corner of the building, where Mott Street met Pell Street, where two buildings connected with a 3-foot gap between ledges. Below him, 40 feet of nothing. Ahead, 3 feet of air between buildings. Lucky didn't think. Thinking meant hesitation. Hesitation meant falling. He jumped. 3 feet. Sideways. 40 feet up. Broken fingers. Adrenaline-fueled madness. Lucky's hands hit the opposite ledge. Right hand slipped. Left hand caught. He dangled. One-handed. Body swinging. For 3 seconds, Lucky hung there. One hand. 40 feet up. Broken fingers screaming. Then he pulled. Chin up. One arm. Impossible strength born from absolute refusal to die. His right hand found the ledge. Both hands secured. He pulled himself onto the second building's ledge. Window right there. 4th floor apartment. Light inside. Lucky smashed the window with his elbow. Glass shattered. Lucky pulled himself through. Landed inside. An elderly Chinese couple sat at dinner, chopsticks frozen halfway to mouths, staring at the bloody Italian man who'd just crashed through their window. Lucky stood, breathing hard, hands bleeding, fingers broken, glass cuts on his arms. "Sorry about the window," Lucky said in broken Cantonese. Then he ran for the apartment door. Back in the other building, Frank Nitti and his men stared out the window, watched Lucky jump, watched him catch the opposite ledge, watched him disappear through another window. "Jesus Christ," one of them whispered. "How the hell did he?" "Doesn't matter," Nitti interrupted, his voice tight, controlled. "He's alive, which means we have about 5 minutes before he comes back with everyone he knows. We leave now." They ran down 4 flights of stairs, out onto Mott Street, into waiting cars, gone within 90 seconds, but not far enough, not fast enough, not for what came next. Lucky burst into the street from the second building, still running, hands bleeding, face cut from glass. He found a payphone, dialed with his left hand. Right hand useless, broken fingers swelling. Meyer answered. "Yeah, it's me," Lucky said, breathing hard. "Mott Street, 4th floor office. Chicago outfit just tried to kill me." "Are you?" "I'm alive. Get everyone. Albert, Vito, everyone. Meet me at the warehouse in Red Hook in 30 minutes. And Meyer, yeah, bring guns, lots of guns." Lucky hung up, looked at his hands. The right hand was destroyed. 2 fingers definitely broken, maybe 3, blood everywhere. He'd need a doctor, but not yet. First he needed to send a message that would reach Chicago by morning. Red Hook warehouse, 10:47 p.m. Meyer Lansky arrived with 12 men. Albert Anastasia brought 8 more. Vito Genovese showed up with his crew. Word had spread fast. Lucky Luciano had almost been thrown out a window, was alive, was planning something. When they arrived, Lucky was sitting on a crate, right hand wrapped in a bar towel, already turning purple, a bottle of whiskey in his left hand, not for drinking, for sterilizing the glass cuts. Everyone stared at him, at the blood, at the damaged hand, at the cuts on his face. Meyer broke the silence. "Charlie, what the hell happened?" Lucky told them. The meeting, the ambush, the window, hanging by his fingers, the jump, everything. When he finished, the warehouse was silent. Then Albert spoke. "Chicago did this. Frank Nitti. Capone's orders, probably." "So we go to war," Albert said. Simple, direct, no. Lucky stood up, winced as his broken fingers moved. "We don't go to war. We send a messenger." "What kind of messenger?" Meyer asked. "The kind that shows Chicago what happens when you try to throw Lucky Luciano out a window." Frank Nitti made it back to his hotel. The Waldorf, 15th floor, penthouse suite. Thought he was safe. He was wrong. At 2:17 a.m. someone knocked on his door. Nitti answered. Meyer Lansky stood there, with Albert Anastasia, and 6 more men, all armed. "Evening, Frank," Meyer said. "We need to talk." Nitti tried to close the door. Albert's foot blocked it, pushed through. The men flooded into the suite. Nitti backed up, hand moving toward his waistband, toward his gun. He never reached it. Albert's punch caught him in the solar plexus, dropped him gasping. They zip-tied his hands, dragged him to the window, the big window overlooking Park Avenue. 15 stories up. Meyer opened the window. Cold March wind rushed in. "Here's the thing, Frank," Meyer said. Conversational, calm. "You tried to throw our friend out a window tonight. 40 feet. 4th floor. Would have killed him if he hadn't been tough enough to hang on by his broken fingers." Nitti was trying to catch his breath. "It was business, nothing personal." "Business," Meyer nodded. "Right, so this is business too." Albert and another man grabbed Nitti, lifted him, held him over the windowsill. Nitti looked down. 15 stories. Park Avenue. Traffic below. Please, Nitti whispered. Don't. We're not going to drop you, Frank, Maya said. We're not like you. We don't try to kill people with windows. Then what? We're going to make you understand something. Maya leaned close. Lucky Luciano doesn't die easy. You pushed him out a window, and he climbed the outside of a building with broken fingers. You think that's someone you can kill with gravity. They pulled Nitti back inside, dropped him on the floor. You're going back to Chicago, Maya said. You're going to tell Al Capone exactly what happened tonight. You're going to tell him Lucky survived. And you're going to tell him that if Chicago ever tries something like this again, we won't just hang you out a window and pull you back. We'll throw every single one of Capone's people out of windows until Chicago understands the lesson. Maya turned to leave, stopped at the door. Oh, and Frank, Lucky says to tell you, next time shoot him. Windows don't work. They left. Nitti stayed on the floor for 20 minutes, just breathing, just understanding how close he'd come to 15 stories of empty air. Frank Nitti took the first train to Chicago the next morning. Walked into Al Capone's office at noon. Capone looked up from his desk. Is it done? He's alive. Capone's face went still. What? Luciano. We threw him out the window like you said. He hung on by his fingers. Then he jumped to another building. Then he escaped. He what? And last night his people came to my hotel, 15th floor, held me out the window, said if we ever try something like this again, they'll start throwing Chicago people out of windows until we learn. Capone stared at him for a long moment. Then he started laughing, not happy laughter. The laugh of a man who's just realized he's made a fundamental miscalculation. We tried to kill Lucky Luciano with gravity, Capone said, and he climbed the outside of a building with broken fingers. Yes, and now he's pissed off. Very. Capone stopped laughing. We're done in New York. Pull everyone out. Luciano wins. Because anyone tough enough to survive a 4-story fall by not falling, that's not someone we can kill. Lucky Luciano's hand took 8 weeks to heal. 2 broken fingers. Permanent damage to the tendons. For the rest of his life, he couldn't fully close his right fist. He wore it like a badge. Years later, someone asked him about the scars, about the twisted fingers. Souvenir from the night Chicago tried to throw me out a window, Lucky said. How'd you survive? Didn't want to die, so I didn't. That simple. Lucky looked at his damaged hand, at fingers that would never work quite right again. Nothing simple, but sometimes wanting to live is enough, especially when the alternative is 40 feet of air and Frank Nitti thinking he won. Did it hurt? The fingers. Hurt like hell. Still hurt sometimes, but you know what hurts more? What? Dying. Dying hurts more. So I held on. If this story showed you what real survival looks like, hit subscribe. We're uncovering the nights when giving up meant dying, and holding on meant living. When broken fingers were worth it. When 40 feet of empty air was just another problem to solve. Turn on notifications. Lucky Luciano refused to die, every single time. Drop a comment. Could you hold on with broken fingers? Lucky Luciano, the king who climbed buildings rather than fall. The boss who taught Chicago that gravity doesn't work on people who refuse to die. Rest in power.